Beetlejuice. Funny enough with Beetlejuice, it was never a movie I was ever emotionally fully enthralled by. I didn't have a childhood emotional attachment to it, but when I finally watched it in my adulthood, I really loved it. I really had a blast with it. It's a great, fun Tim Burton ride with genuine character. Winona Ryder's a great main lead, and the family in general, the cast is fantastic, and the movie looks beautiful. It was made back when Tim Burton was really in his Goldilocks zone, making those otherworldly, undead worlds that felt livable, tangible, but there was still heart, there was still sincerity within the characters. And I will say with Beetlejuice, it does feel like there's an attempt at that. There's an attempt to bring passion to it. It feels like everyone involved wanted to be there and that they wanted to make it for the sake of making a fun sequel. I know that feels like it's something you gotta ask for in terms of bare minimum, but that is something that is really exciting to see in a movie, is when that energy is contagious on screen. And even though I didn't love this movie in particular, I do love that there was a lot of love that was contagious on screen from the characters, from the charisma of the actors. I do appreciate that element of it a lot. And with Beetlejuice, I did find that there was a lot of moments where you did have that Tim Burton aesthetic, that loving, beautiful cinematography. There's some great practical effects in this as well. What I think really works with Beetlejuice is the fact that there is so much use of practicality, so many miniatures, and so much love for that old style of filmmaking that brought the first Beetlejuice to life. I really like that we didn't feel like we lost sight of that. It felt like there was a consistency within the visual world as well. It didn't feel disconnected from the original Beetlejuice. It felt like it was still in that same visual medium world. It didn't feel like we were just coming in with a different director and just making it feel different for the sake of feeling different. I appreciated consistency within the visual medium of that. Cast in this movie is fantastic. Any problems I have with this movie has nothing really to do with the actors themselves. I think in terms of acting, the cast is amazing. Jenna Ortega, like usual, is amazing in what she does. She's great in everything, and this is no exception. Jenna Ortega really does a good job at making you feel like she is the daughter of Winona Ryder's character. And I really like seeing their back and forth, and I think Winona Ryder, for me, is still my favorite character of the bunch. While I do love Jenna Ortega, I do think writing-wise, her character does feel a little one note at times. It does go back and forth because you have this whole thing where she's mad at Winona Ryder, her mom, and she has every justification to be angry, and I like the fact that there's a conflict there. However, it does feel like sometimes Jenna Ortega's character is just, she'll find any excuse. She's a little one note in how she comes across. She only feels like she's saying the same information. I feel like Winona Ryder's character could be looking around like, oh, the sky's very pretty today, yeah. Jenna Ortega would just be like, yeah. It was pretty. Just like the time you left me, the time you didn't come back, because I hate you. It does make her feel kind of one note because she's so angry at her mother, and she's justified in that. But it does feel like that's the only note she's on sometimes, so it feels like she's kind of saying the same thing. And that goes for a lot of the other characters in this movie. I feel like the main, most interesting one, the most three-dimensional, is Winona Ryder's character. She feels like she has the most weight, she has the most carryover from the last movie. And I like that we were dealing with her trauma, her kind of fear of Beetlejuice. I thought that was a really fun aspect. The little mini hints of horror in that are really fun, and that did bring this movie up a bit. But there is an element to this movie where I'm watching it, and I am wondering to myself, admittedly, I'm thinking, so this is all we've been waiting for. Because there's not a lot of Beetlejuice in this movie, and that was the kind of bumming thing, is there's so many plot lines and plot threads in this movie fighting for time, and this is a common sentiment I've had in a few other movies that have come out this year whenever I've had issues, is that there's so many plot threads in this movie, they're all fighting for screen time, and none of them get time to shine. I've said that so many times this year, but this is another case in point where it feels like that's the case, because Beetlejuice as a character feels like he's sidelined in his own movie. I get that Beetlejuice is someone that didn't show up a lot in the first movie, however, the conflict still revolved around him, so the idea of his presence was always felt, even when he wasn't on screen. As to where Beetlejuice, there's several other antagonists. There's two other villains in this movie, because Beetlejuice doesn't really count as a villain, but with that being said, his ex-wife and another character are in this film that just really feel like they grind the pacing to a halt. This movie doesn't feel like it has focus all the time. It feels like there's a lot of things happening at once, especially when you have the subplot with Jenna Ortega's character meeting another boyfriend type, the small love angle they have going on with her character. I thought it could have been really well handled, but here it just felt out of place, and it felt like it took a while to get to the point of why it was there. I ultimately appreciated why in the long run. With that being said, though, the build up to that didn't really feel worth it, and I think that has to do with the fact that I didn't love all the characters. A lot of the side characters in in this movie, like you have Winona Ryder's character's husband in this, him in particular, and a few others, they feel like they're more so archetypes of jokes than they are characters. They feel one note in the sense that they have one personality type, but you never meet other levels of that, as to where you get that with Winona Ryder's character. You get that with the main lead, but no one else. So sometimes there's a lot of contrast when it comes to character. That being said, when Beetlejuice and the main conflict at hand are separated, when we don't have Beetlejuice fully in the main plot, when we're cutting back and forth to him, I didn't even find him that interesting or all that compelling. A lot of the humor with Beetlejuice didn't really land fully for me until he was starting to interact with other characters. When he was the personality, the craziness, bouncing off of everyone else, that's when I felt like it worked the best. But that's what's really bumming about this movie, though, is that you don't get so much of that so-called best until like the last 20 to 15 minutes, because this movie takes so much time to get there. It takes so much time leading to everything else. You have so many characters fighting for the screen time. I don't really love all the characters, so by the time all the plot threads come together, pacing feels rather slow, so by the time we're getting to the end, we're really rushing everything. We spend so much time in this movie setting up the conflicts, and then we suddenly just rush through to the end. So there's a huge ebb and flow with the pacing. It never really felt like I could find consistency with how the movie was moving. Nothing really feels resolved. It feels rather rushed. They just kind of focused up and really honed in on the family aspect, the conflict between Jenna Ortega and her mom, Winona Ryder's character and her trauma, really keeping it focused. Instead, we have this boyfriend character, this husband character of Winona Ryder, this other conflict fighting for the helm. You also have Willem Dafoe in this movie, who's really good when he's on screen, even though I feel like his character didn't really get much to do. To top that all off, I didn't really feel like the humor always landed. There are some jokes in here where I'm just like, that's kind of dated. Really? Chinese laundromat owner. That's the humor you're going with. Okay, movie. Why though? All in all, I didn't really love Beetlejuice. I didn't dig it. I really wanted to. Like, don't torch me. What did you guys think? Did you like Beetlejuice? Did it feel like a worthy follow-up? For me, I just felt like it was a lot of setup with not a lot of